My 11-year-old daughter found this note at home. Let her die. Don't call anyone. Then we saw my husband's grandmother, alone and ghostly pale. My daughter tried to call an ambulance, but Grandma held her back and whispered, "No doctors. Look under the bed." What happened next cost my in-laws everything. Okay, take a deep breath. Imagine walking into your own home, only to find a chilling, handwritten note on the kitchen island that simply says, "Let her die. Don't call anyone." That was the moment my entire world shattered. And it was just the beginning of how my in-laws lost absolutely everything. Before all this, I honestly thought the most stressful thing in my life was packing for a cheap vacation. You know, the kind that costs less than a new set of tires.
Boy, was I wrong.
The real stress, the soul-crushing kind, began the moment I saw that note. My name is Sarah. I live just outside Seattle, in a big house that always looked impressive to strangers, but felt exhausting to me. I was the one who had to clean it, after all. I have an amazing 11-year-old daughter, Maddie. She's smart, incredibly observant, and she absolutely cannot stand injustice. And then there was Eric, my husband. I say had like it's some casual detail, but trust me, it's not. Eric came with his mother, Linda. Linda was a master manipulator. She could smile directly at you while simultaneously making you feel like you were nothing more than a stubborn stain on her pristine family fabric. She wasn't overtly cruel, no. Linda was strategic. She believed in plausible deniability, the way other women believe in their morning probiotics. And then there was Eric's grandmother, Evelyn Sinclair. For 2 years, Evelyn had been living with us. Linda insisted she was declining, weak, confused, not really all there. She stayed mostly in the back bedroom, quiet, motionless, often just staring past us as if we were background noise, a TV left on in the corner. But Maddie, my fierce little advocate, she never gave up on Evelyn. She'd leave little drawings by Evelyn's door. Sweet, hopeful notes like, "Hi, Grandma Evelyn. I hope you feel better." Sometimes a heart, sometimes a bright sun. Linda never once acknowledged them. Not a "how sweet," not a "thank you," nothing. Eric would just shrug, that infuriating, dismissive shrug, and say, "You know how Mom is." Honestly, that phrase should come with a massive warning label. A week before everything spiraled out of control, I made a decision Eric immediately labeled stupid. I booked a cheap 3-night getaway for me and Maddie. Ocean Shores, an off-season budget resort, the kind of place with a perpetually damp indoor pool and faded carpet where the most luxurious feature is usually the free coffee. But Maddie was ecstatic. All full-body kid joy, like happiness was something she could physically carry. Eric, on the other hand, looked at the reservation email like I'd sent him proof of my utter incompetence. "Ocean Shores," he scoffed. "That's not a vacation. It's 3 days," I countered, "and Maddie wants the beach." He made a sound, a sort of guttural noise, as if the beach itself was a personal insult. "It'll be cold. It'll be damp. What's the point?" My voice stayed even, though my blood was boiling. "The point, Eric, is that our daughter has been asking for something simple, and I'm doing it."
He didn't argue. He never had to.
He just let out that signature sigh, the one that screamed, "I'm letting you embarrass yourself." "Fine," he finally said.
"Go."
"I'll stay here." Maddie, standing nearby, her backpack strap clutched in her small hand, watched her father opt out of her happiness as if it were a tedious, unwanted subscription. Later, of course, Linda called. Linda always called. "I heard you're taking Madison to Ocean Shores," she said, pronouncing it like a contagious medical condition. "Yes, it'll be fun," I said, trying to sound cheerful. She hummed. "Eric staying behind then?" "Of course. Someone has to manage the house." "Manage what? His fantasy?"
I didn't bite.
I never did. Biting Linda didn't hurt her. It just gave her ammunition to call Eric and whine. "Your wife is so emotional." So Maddie and I went, and it was genuinely lovely. Not Instagram perfect lovely. Not. We rented a villa lovely. But real life, messy, wonderful lovely. We ate greasy fries on the sand. Maddie collected shells like they were priceless artifacts, and we swam in that aggressively chlorinated indoor pool, giggling the whole time. We laughed. I barely checked my phone. That last part, that blissful ignorance, will forever haunt me, because while Maddie and I were playing mini golf, Eric and Linda were doing something else entirely. I found out the way so many modern marriages crumble through a social media post I wasn't meant to see. There was Linda, oversized sunglasses, a tropical drink in hand, a smug, satisfied smile plastered across her face. The caption read, finally getting some real rest. Family time. And behind her, there was Eric, grinning like a man who'd never had to choose between his child and his ego. The location tag? Maui. Maddie saw it over my shoulder. She stared at the screen for a long, silent moment, then whispered, so softly, "So, we weren't invited." I wanted to lie. Oh, how I wanted to say, "Of course you were, sweetheart. It's just complicated." But Maddie is 11. She's old enough to know the difference between complicated and cruel. "No," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "We weren't." She nodded once. No drama, no tears. Just that quiet, methodical way she files away information, like she's a tiny, observant lawyer. Then she just went back to collecting shells as if to say, I can at least control this small part of my world. We drove home the next afternoon. Seattle, as if on cue, greeted us with its signature gray skies and damp air. It felt fitting. Maddie sang along to the radio beside me, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept my eyes fixed on the road, trying desperately not to imagine what might be happening back at the house. I tried to reassure myself. Eric was selfish, yes, but not a criminal. Linda was mean, absolutely, but not evil. And Evelyn? Evelyn was there.
Quiet. Safe.
That, I would soon discover, was my second devastating mistake. We pulled into the driveway around 3 p.m. The house loomed, looking perfectly normal, expensive still, like it was posing for a magazine cover. But something was profoundly wrong. The porch light was on in broad daylight. The air felt too quiet, eerily muted, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Maddie, ever the energetic one, hopped out first. She rolled her tiny suitcase to the front door, pushed it open with her shoulder, and then she froze. Her suitcase tipped over, clattering to the ground. She didn't even notice. "Mom," she whispered, her voice thin, fragile. "There's a note." I walked in and there it was. Immediately, white paper, pristine, placed dead center on the kitchen island, like a horrifying centerpiece. Maddie read it aloud, her young voice trembling, as if to confirm its impossible reality. "Let her die. Don't call anyone." My stomach plummeted. The world spun. I snatched the paper, my fingers shaking. No signature, no explanation. But I knew that handwriting.
Neat.
Confident. The precise, unapologetic script of someone who writes lists for other people to follow. "Linda," Maddie whispered, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "Is that about Grandma Evelyn?" I couldn't answer. I just couldn't. To speak the words would make the note a terrifying fact, not just a nightmare I prayed I'd wake from. I moved, numb, down the hallway toward the back room. Maddie clung to me, a frightened shadow. That back hallway always felt cooler, dimmer, and it led to Evelyn's room, Linda's quiet room, she'd called it, as if it were a spa feature, not a place where someone was slowly fading. And then I saw it, a brand new lock, a keyed lock, on the outside of the door. My mouth went instantly dry. I tried the knob.
Locked.
I knocked. Evelyn. No response. Maddie's breath hitched. A tiny, desperate sound. Maybe she can't answer? My heart hammered in my ears. I didn't have a key, but more importantly, I had no patience left. A chilling clarity washed over me. Something truly, monstrously wrong had happened in my home while I was out buying my daughter ice cream. "Stand back," I told Maddie, my voice tight. She didn't argue, but she stayed glued to my side. I grabbed the nearest heavy object, a ridiculous metal candlestick from Linda's vampire decor hallway table, and slammed it into the lock.
Once, twice.
On the third hit, the cheap mechanism gave with a sickening crack. The door swung open. The smell hit us first. Stale air, bone-dry heat, the distinct, horrifying wrongness of a room where a living person had been shut away. And then I saw Evelyn. She was in bed, pale as paper, her lips cracked, eyes half open. No water on the nightstand. No snacks. No meds. No call button. Nothing. Maddie let out a broken, guttural sob and ran to the bed. "Grandma," she cried, grabbing Evelyn's hand. Evelyn's fingers were icy cold. Maddie looked up at me, pure terror in her eyes. "Mom, she's dying." Instinct took over. I checked her pulse, weak, but there. A fragile thread. I dashed to the kitchen for water.
But Maddie?
Maddie doesn't freeze. Maddie acts. Her phone was already out. Emergency call screen glowing. Her thumb trembled. "I'm calling 911, she declared, her voice fierce. That's when Evelyn moved. Not slowly, not frail. With startling, unexpected strength, she grabbed Maddie's wrist. Maddie froze. Her eyes widened, shocked. Evelyn's gaze sharpened, suddenly laser-focused, and in a rough, Clear voice, she whispered. No doctors. Maddie blinked. But you. Evelyn tightened her grip, just enough to hold Maddie in place. Just look under the bed, she rasped. Seeing Maddie's panic, her voice softened. Just slightly. Not an ambulance.
Not the ER.
Not yet, she whispered. If they get me out of this house before we document what they did, they'll just call it an accident. Give me 15 minutes. Then you can call whoever you want. I stared at her, stunned. This was not the confused, fading woman Linda had described. This was a strategist. And speaking of strategy, if you're still with me, still hooked by this insane story, please hit that subscribe button. I promise, there are more unbelievable twists coming. Maddie just stared at me, then at Evelyn, a silent question in her eyes. Is she hallucinating? Am I? Evelyn, I pleaded. You need medical help now. I will, she rasped, her gaze firm. But not yet. Under the bed, Maddie, still holding her phone, didn't hang up. She just hovered, ready. I dropped to my knees and peered under the bed. Shoved far back, as if intentionally hidden, was a plastic storage bin. I pulled it out. Inside, bottled water, electrolyte packets, a small first aid kit, a pulse oximeter, and an envelope taped to a cheap burner phone. A sticky note on the phone simply read, "Call Samuel." Who's Samuel? Maddie whispered, her voice a mix of horror and dawning awe. Evelyn released Maddie's wrist, leaning back against the pillows as if she'd just completed the first, most crucial step of a complex plan. My attorney, she stated. I just stared at the phone. A hidden emergency kit? And a burner phone? Evelyn's mouth twitched. Yes. Maddie's voice was shaky now, half horrified, half impressed. Are you a, spy grandma? Evelyn's sharp eyes flicked to her granddaughter. I'm a grandmother who got tired of being underestimated. I quickly mixed an electrolyte packet into water and helped Evelyn drink slowly. Maddie, meanwhile, watched her vitals on the oximeter like she'd been training for this her entire life. Then, I grabbed the burner phone and called the only saved contact. It rang twice. Samuel Miller. A calm, professional voice answered. Samuel, I said, trying desperately to keep my voice steady. This is Sarah. I'm with Evelyn. She told me to call you. No surprise. No confusion from him. Is she awake? He asked. I'm awake, Evelyn rasped, her voice stronger than before. Samuel let out a long, slow breath, like he'd been holding it for days. Put me on speaker. I did. Evelyn. Samuel's voice came through, clear and crisp. Are they gone? They're in Maui, Evelyn replied, a flicker of something dark in her eyes. They think I'll be dead by the time they get back. Maddie's face tightened with disgust. That's evil. Evelyn's eyes softened just slightly at Maddie's fierce indignation. Sarah, Samuel continued, his tone unwavering. Listen carefully. Take photos. The lock, the room, the lack of water, everything. I'm dispatching security and a medical provider. And Sarah, he emphasized, do not contact Eric or Linda. I let out a short, hollow laugh that held no humor. Believe me, I said, I wasn't planning on it. I'm a little busy discovering my house has a hostage room. Samuel's composure never wavered. Evelyn, do you consent to law enforcement involvement? Yes, Evelyn said, her voice clear. Maddie, still clutching her phone, raised it again. If she passes out, I'm calling 911 anyway. Evelyn looked at Maddie, and this time, a small, real smile touched her lips. Fair, she said. While we waited, I kept feeding Evelyn water in small, careful sips. Maddie stayed glued to her side, holding her grandmother's hand. She was shaking, yes, but she didn't run. And that, you guys, that mattered. Because when you're 11 and you witness something like this, you either become utterly terrified, or you become fiercely brave. Maddie was becoming fierce. Samuel arrived within 15 minutes, and he certainly didn't come alone. Two large, quiet men followed him. Security, professional, the kind who scan every corner without being asked. Samuel himself was in his late 50s, impeccably dressed, clearly a man who argued with judges for fun. He took one look at the splintered lock, Evelyn's cracked lips, the horrifyingly empty nightstand, and his jaw tightened. Evelyn, he said gently, are you stable enough to talk? Evelyn nodded. Samuel turned to me, his gaze softening slightly. Thank you for opening that door. I almost snapped something sarcastic, but the truth was, I was on the verge of
tears.
She was locked in there. I managed to choke out. I know. Samuel said, his voice grim. And now, we document it properly. He immediately began making calls. Adult Protective Services, a private medical provider, even a detective he apparently knew by first name. Life lesson, folks. When the right lawyer makes calls, doors fly open. Soon, a nurse practitioner arrived. She took one look at Evelyn and started documenting everything with clinical precision. Vitals, signs of severe dehydration, the condition of the room, the broken lock. Do you want transport? She asked Evelyn. Evelyn's voice, almost unbelievably, turned soft, shaky, convincingly weak. Not yet. The nurse looked at Samuel. He nodded. She's competent, he stated. Document refusal. Maddie, ever observant, whispered to me, she's acting. I whispered back, yes, and we'll talk about that later. Because in that moment, there were far bigger fires raging. Samuel pulled me into the hallway, his voice dropping to a quiet, urgent tone. Sarah, I'm going to say this plainly.
He paused.
Eric does not own this house. I blinked, utterly bewildered. He what? The house is owned by the Sinclair Family Trust, Samuel explained. Evelyn is the trustee. Eric has been living here, representing it as his, but he has no legal claim whatsoever. A searing heat bloomed in my chest.
Rage.
Humiliation, but also a powerful, intoxicating wave of vindication. It was all tangled up, a chaotic knot of emotions. Samuel continued. Eric also doesn't own the company he constantly brags about. Evelyn does. I stared at him, dumbfounded. What company? Samuel gave me that look. The seafood distribution company your husband likes to call his business. Evelyn built it. Eric works there. My brain, in a sickening flash, replayed every single time Eric had acted superior to me. Every time he'd talked down to my job, my parenting, my choices. Like he was some titan of industry and I was just an accessory. Turns out, he was just a middle manager with an atrocious attitude. Samuel then handed me a thick folder. Evelyn, he explained, asked me to prepare these emergency instructions. If she was harmed, or if someone even tried to harm her, this triggers immediate legal action. I opened it, my hands still trembling. Inside were trust documents, revocations, detailed password lists, instructions to freeze access to accounts, names of key executives, and a line that made my throat constrict with a terrifying chill. In the event of restraint or neglect, contact APS and police. Proceed with removal of occupants. This wasn't some confused, declining old woman. This was a brilliant, meticulous woman who had been planning, orchestrating her own survival for a very long time. Back in the room, Evelyn gestured weakly to her nightstand drawer. Tablet, she rasped. I pulled it out. On the screen was a home security app displaying multiple camera angles. The kitchen, the hallway, the living room, outside entry. Video footage, not audio, no dramatic dialogue. Just visual, irrefutable proof. The kind that holds up in court. Evelyn's eyes, sharp and unwavering, watched my face for my reaction. I needed to see what they did when they thought I was helpless, she said, her voice thin but firm. I swallowed, a lump in my throat. Why didn't you tell me any of this? She replied, blunt and cold. Because I wasn't sure you were safe, Sarah. And because Linda can smell sympathy like blood. Maddie leaned in closer, her gaze riveted to the screen. You were watching them, she murmured. I was learning them, Evelyn corrected. She tapped a folder labeled Archive. Dates, stretching back months. Play that, she told me, pointing to one file. The video showed Linda holding the new lock. Eric stood right beside her, a smirk playing on his lips. Linda installed it with meticulous care, like she was upgrading the home, not imprisoning a human being. Eric laughed. He actually laughed. Maddie's face went rigid. I clicked another video. Linda, removing Evelyn's water pitcher. Not spilling it, not forgetting it. Removing it, a deliberate choice. Then another. Eric in the kitchen, texting, grinning at his phone. And standing far too close to him, laughing, was Brittany Collins. Yes, that Brittany Collins. He kissed her. Casual, comfortable, like my entire marriage was already a closed tab, an afterthought. Maddie's eyes went glossy, then wide with disbelief. Dad has someone else? I put my hand on her shoulder. She leaned into me, a small, trembling weight, her gaze still fixed on the screen. Evelyn's voice, when she spoke, softened for the first time. I'm sorry, Maddie. Maddie scrubbed at her face, furious at the tears that threatened to fall. He always acts like we're annoying, like we're in the way. Evelyn's gaze, previously soft, hardened. You are not in the way. Maddie looked at her, searching for answers. Then why do they treat me like I am? Evelyn's eyes flicked, just for a moment, toward the hallway where the lock had been. Because they only care about what they can take, she said, her voice a low, steady rumble. And you, sweetheart, are not something to take. You're someone to love. That did it. My throat tightened, a sudden ache. Maddie, my incredible daughter, deserved to hear those words from an adult who truly meant them. Samuel returned then, calm and unnervingly efficient. Here's what happens next, he stated. We file for an emergency protective order for Evelyn. We notify APS. We prepare law enforcement to meet them when they return. And we cut off Eric's access to the trust and the company. Today, Maddie whispered, a single word, fierce and cold. Good. Samuel looked at me, his gaze direct. Sarah, you should file for divorce and temporary custody first thing tomorrow. I nodded, my voice barely a squeak. Okay. Evelyn, ever the orchestrator, spoke up. I want them home. I blinked. Why? Evelyn's mouth set into a flat, grim line. Because I'm finished waiting. Samuel's eyes flicked to me. We can lure them back. Evelyn looked at me, a silent directive in her gaze. Tell Eric what he wants to hear. I understood. Instantly. The cruel, greedy part of them wanted a death. They wanted a clean, convenient ending. So, we would give them a messy, shocking beginning. That evening, my fingers hovered over my phone. I finally texted Eric. It happened. Call me. I stared at the screen. It felt like I was holding a live wire. Maddie, quiet beside me, asked, Are we lying? Evelyn answered, We're setting a trap. Maddie nodded. It made perfect sense to her. When you've been treated like you don't matter, you learn to appreciate strategy. Eric called within minutes. I didn't answer right away. I wanted him to sit in his panic, just for a second. Then, I picked up, letting my voice shake, making it sound broken. Eric. His voice was sharp, impatient, not tender.
Not worried about me.
What do you mean it happened? I let the silence do. It's work. Then I whispered, Your grandma. There was a pause. Not grief. Pure calculation. Eric exhaled. Okay.
Don't do anything.
Don't call anyone. We're getting on the next flight. Don't call anyone. The exact, chilling vibe of Linda's note. My stomach churned. I swallowed down the bile. Okay, I said, and hung up, staring at my phone as if it were contaminated. Maddie whispered, furious. He didn't ask if you were okay.
No, I said. He didn't.
Evelyn's voice was quiet, almost regretful. He never does. The next day moved with the terrifying precision of a perfectly orchestrated storm. Samuel filed everything: the emergency protective order, the APS report, notices to the company, immediate instructions to freeze Eric's access to all accounts and systems, corporate cards canceled, email access revoked. Evelyn, meanwhile, made her own calls to her executives and her board. Yes, she had a board, and she changed them out like switching off a light. By lunchtime, Eric's name had vanished from the company directory. Funny, isn't it? How quickly important becomes unemployed? Security remained at the house, not dramatic or obvious, just present. And the house itself changed. Not physically, not yet, but emotionally. For the very first time, I didn't feel like I was living in Linda's shadow. I felt like I had finally, truly stepped out of it. That night, Maddie helped me put away our Ocean Shore souvenirs. Some shells, a cheap keychain, a photo booth strip where we were both laughing, genuinely happy. Maddie held the strip, tracing our faces. I'm glad we went, she said softly. Me, too, I replied, my throat tight. She looked at it a moment longer, then added, even if Dad didn't want to come. I didn't correct her. Sometimes kids protect themselves with optimism. Sometimes you just let them. At 10:58 p.m. the next day, the driveway camera pinged. Car lights. A door slamming. Footsteps. I looked at the monitor. There they were. Eric, wheeling a suitcase, moving fast, like a man rushing towards money. Linda, stiff and sharp, scanning the house, undoubtedly expecting to see something else. And then Brittany Collins, wearing a hoodie, trying to look inconspicuous, as if she wasn't arriving at my home. Late at night, with my husband. Maddie saw Brittany. That's her, she whispered. Her voice didn't shake this time. It hardened. Inside the living room, Evelyn sat upright in a chair. Not in bed, not frail, not confused. Her hair brushed, her eyes clear and unblinking. Samuel stood beside her, a pillar of calm, and by the entryway, a detective and 2 uniformed officers stood silently.
Come.
Official. Definitely not here for family drama. I put my hand on Maddie's back. Stay behind me, I whispered. Maddie nodded, But she didn't retreat. She stood tall. The front door opened. Eric stepped inside and stopped dead, as if he'd hit an invisible wall. The scene was not what he expected. No tears, no chaos, no corpse, just his grandmother,
Alive.
staring at him like he was something she'd finally identified under a microscope. Eric's mouth opened, then closed. Grandma? Evelyn's voice was soft, almost chillingly so. Hello, Eric. Linda, of course, found her voice first. What is this? Why are there police here? Sarah, what did you do?
Yes.
Blame the woman who broke the lock.
Classic.
The detective stepped forward, his expression neutral. Ma'am, we're here regarding a report of suspected elder abuse and unlawful imprisonment. Eric's face flashed with indignation. That's insane. Evelyn didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. You locked me in a room, she stated, her gaze piercing Eric. Without water. Linda scoffed, a brittle, dismissive sound. You were fine, Evelyn. We were only gone a few days. Sarah is exaggerating. The nurse practitioner's detailed, damning report sat neatly clipped on the coffee table. Samuel tapped it gently with one finger. Medical documentation says otherwise, he said, his voice flat.
Eric tried to speak.
Grandma, listen. Evelyn cut him off with one devastating word. No. The air in the room changed, because a no from a woman who has always said yes hits like a clap of thunder. Samuel nodded to the officers and handed over the printed evidence. Photographs of the broken lock, the chilling note, the empty bedside table, the medical report on dehydration, and selected video clips. Not spy movie clips, real clips. Linda installing the lock, Eric standing by, smirking. Linda removing Evelyn's water pitcher, not forgetting it, but choosing to take it. Eric walking past the closed door without even slowing down. And yes, Brittany in the kitchen, too close to Eric, laughing, while Linda typed at the island. Eric's breathing went shallow, ragged. Maddie whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. You did that. Eric's eyes flicked to her. For a fraction of a second, I saw him remember she existed. Then his face hardened. Maddie, Maddie interrupted him. My daughter had finally reached her limit of polite silence. This is what, she snapped, her voice cracking with fury. A misunderstanding? You left her locked up. You left a note telling us to let her die. Linda's eyes flashed at Maddie, sharp with venom, as if she wanted to slap her with a glance. This is why children should stay out of adult business. Linda hissed. Maddie lifted her chin. Fearless. Then adults should stop doing evil stuff in front of children. The detective looked at Eric. Sir, please step over here. Eric's voice rose, desperate. I live here. Samuel spoke calmly, cutting through Eric's delusion. No, you don't. The house is owned by the Sinclair Family Trust. Evelyn is the trustee. You've been served with a trespass notice, and we've already petitioned the court for an emergency protection order. Eric blinked rapidly, his face pale. What? That's... Evelyn's voice was almost gentle, laced with a cold, cutting irony. You liked calling it your house, Eric. I let you. It made you feel important. Eric's face flushed scarlet. Linda sputtered. This is ridiculous. He's her grandson. The officer's expression didn't change. Turn around, sir. Eric stared at the handcuffs as if they were a personal betrayal, an affront to his imagined status. You're arresting me for a family issue? The detective's tone was flat, unwavering. Elder abuse, unlawful restraint, and we're investigating financial exploitation. Linda's voice climbed into shrill territory. Sarah did this. She's manipulating Evelyn. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was either laugh or scream. Linda, I said, I just got back from a budget resort with a broken waffle maker. I am not the criminal mastermind here. Evelyn's mouth twitched, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile. Brittany took a tentative step toward the door. Security quietly blocked her. No drama, just a silent, firm no. Evelyn turned her gaze to Brittany, her eyes cold. You should have stayed away from my family, she said. Brittany tried to speak. This is a misunderstanding. Samuel cut in, smoothly. We can do this the easy way or the expensive way. I suggest you contact counsel. Eric barked. Brittany, go. Brittany hesitated, her eyes darting between the officers and the door. The detective looked at her. Ma'am, you're not under arrest right now, but you may be contacted by investigators. Do not delete any messages, photos, call logs, or financial records. And do not try to contact Evelyn. That wiped the smugness right off her face. Eric was cuffed, his protests ignored, and escorted out. Linda followed, still arguing, still furious, still utterly shocked that consequences actually exist. At the threshold, she turned back, her eyes sharp with spite, fixed on Maddie. But Maddie didn't flinch. She just stood there, defiant. The door shut with a soft click, and the house, my house, Evelyn's house, finally felt like it exhaled. Maddie slowly sank onto the stairs, her small shoulders shaking violently. I crouched in front of her. "Hey," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. She looked up, her eyes wet, utterly heartbroken. "He really wanted her to die, didn't he?" I swallowed hard, the truth a bitter ash in my mouth. "Yes, sweetie, he did." Maddie's voice cracked, fragile. Did he want us to not matter, too?" I pulled her into my arms then, so tight, I probably bruised us both, but I didn't care. "You matter," I whispered fiercely into her hair. "You matter more than anything." Behind us, Evelyn's voice, quiet and almost regretful, echoed. "You matter. And I'm sorry my family made you feel otherwise." Maddie, still wiping at her cheeks, looked at Evelyn. "Why did you pretend?" Evelyn stared toward the now empty, dark hallway, a profound weariness in her eyes. "Because sometimes," she said, her voice a ghost of its former strength, "the only way to learn who people truly are is to let them think they've already won." Over the next few weeks, life became a blur of paperwork and slow, painful healing. APS followed up. The detective took statements. Evelyn's detailed medical documentation and the photos of that brutal lock left no room for cute excuses. Eric's attorney tried the family conflict angle, but the state doesn't care about your family drama when an elderly woman is locked in a room without water. I filed for divorce. Emergency custody. The kind of soul-crushing paperwork you never imagine signing until you absolutely have to. Eric called from jail. I didn't answer. Linda tried from a dozen different numbers. I didn't answer. Brittany even messaged me online, starting with "as a woman," and I blocked her before she could finish the sentence. The company Evelyn built, the one Eric had paraded around as his own, moved on without him, like he'd been nothing more than a temporary intern. Evelyn, meanwhile, moved out of that claustrophobic back room and into a sunny front bedroom, like she was reclaiming oxygen itself. Maddie helped her pick out new curtains, and Evelyn actually let her, which felt like its own quiet revolution. Some nights, I'd find Maddie sitting with Evelyn, listening intently as Evelyn talked about the ocean, about business, about how people will always try to take what they didn't build. Evelyn would say things like, "Never sign anything you didn't read." And Maddie would nod, like she was storing these lessons for her own future. One morning, Evelyn handed me a folder. Inside, new trust amendments and a college fund plan. For Maddie, I stared at it, speechless. "Evelyn, I finally managed. You don't have to." "I do," Evelyn replied, her gaze firm. I watched them treat her like she was disposable. I watched her show compassion. "Anyway, that deserves protection," Maddie, standing in the doorway, whispered, her voice barely audible. "Is that for me?" Evelyn's gaze softened, a rare, tender warmth in her eyes. "Yes, for you." Maddie stepped forward slowly, hesitantly, as if she wasn't used to adults choosing her. "I didn't do anything special," she mumbled. Evelyn smiled, a small, knowing curve of her lips. "You tried to save someone in this family. That's apparently rare." Maddie made a small sound, half laugh, half sob. "Okay." And then she hugged Evelyn. It wasn't a Hallmark movie hug. It was awkward and real and messy, and it was exactly what should have happened years earlier. Months later, the house feels different. It's not perfect, no, but it's safe. We even repainted the kitchen. Maddie insisted on planting herbs in the backyard, convinced that plants are calming. Evelyn, ever the pragmatist, deadpanned, "Basil won't fix betrayal." And Maddie, quick as a whip, shot back, "It might fix pasta." And Evelyn actually laughed. That sound, Evelyn laughing, truly made me realize how long that house had been holding its breath. People sometimes ask me now, "Do you regret marrying him?" I think about that chilling note. I think about Maddie's shaking thumb hovering over the 911 button, poised to save a life. I think about Evelyn's hand grabbing my daughter's wrist, strong, deliberate, like she was anchoring her to the undeniable truth. And I think about Eric, walking into that living room, expecting a funeral, only to find police, a formidable lawyer, and a grandmother who flat out refused to die on his schedule. Regret? It's complicated. But here's what I know for sure. Family isn't just who shares your last name. It's who shows up when a door is locked and someone inside is waiting desperately to be saved. Eric and Linda, in their arrogance, thought kindness was weakness. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought let her die was a cunning plan. Instead, it became evidence. And evidence, my friends, has a funny habit of turning into handcuffs. So, yes, my in-laws lost everything. But what truly mattered, what was worth every single horrifying moment? My daughter learned she's not invisible. And I learned that sometimes the quietest person in the house isn't powerless at all. Sometimes she's just quietly collecting proof. Thanks for watching until the very end. If this story hit you hard, if it resonated in any way, please give it a like and subscribe for more. And I'm really curious, after hearing all this, who do you think was truly in the wrong here? Tell me in the comments below. I really want to know what you think.